This page is the cover of Total 64 magazine, Volume 1, Issue 4. It's quite the spread, with Fox McCloud front and center for the Star Fox 64 feature, promising a full review, asking if 64 bits is a dream come true. They're hyping it up as the world's best-selling N64 magazine, which is a bold claim right there. You get some decent freebies with this issue too. A free Mario Kart poster, featuring everyone's favorite plumber, and an exclusive Turok comic, Part 1. The cover also teases coverage of War Gods, the N64's first 3D beat-em-up, and a full review of ISS Soccer, Konami's footy offering. Plus, there's a UK showcase for Wave Race complete with tips and cheats. The Plus section is packed with reviews, first looks, tips, and features. They've got reviews for International Superstar Soccer, Star Fox 64, and Wave Race UK. First looks cover big hitters like GoldenEye 007 and Top Gear Rally. For those after secrets, there are Doom 64 codes, and features dive into the evolution of Control and N64 piracy. All in all, looks like a solid issue for your £3.95. It proudly states 100% unofficial too, just in case you were wondering. This page is a full-page advertisement for Sightings, the biggest international UFO magazine, highlighting features on mind control, alien consciousness, and various UFO reports including a free alien poster. This page is the editorial, celebrating Total 64, reaching its 4th issue. The team has been getting stuck into some 4-player mayhem with the big cover game this month, which is none other than Star Fox 64. They reckon Star Fox 64 is pretty foxy, their words not mine, and is probably the most anticipated game since Mario. Also getting a full review is International Superstar Soccer 64, which they feel is exciting, and a strong contender against J-League for the top spot on the charts. They joke about employees skeeving off work to play it, a true sign of a great footy game. The editorial also mentions the big news of the N64 price dropping by £100 in the UK. This is expected to speed up game releases, with games like Wave Race already being sampled. They also talk about moving offices and finding space for all the pizza boxes. It sounds like they're enjoying themselves, and appreciate readers writing in. Enjoy issue 4. This page is the contents spread, giving us a rundown of what's inside this issue of Total 64. Naturally, the big hitters mentioned in the editorial are featured here loud and proud. We've got the cover star, Star Fox 64, getting a full review starting on page 38. They're promising it'll make you forget all about the original SNES version, which is a bold claim indeed. Then, proving it's got the stamina, International Superstar Soccer 64 kicks off its extensive review on page 46. The team reckons it's the first game to actually beat Mario 64 in their reviews, so that sounds like it's worth a punt. There's also a look at the story behind Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, in a comic feature on page 67. Visually, you've got a massive render of Fox McCloud looking rather spiffy in his uniform, artwork for Turok himself, and screenshots from both Star Fox 64 and International Superstar Soccer 64. Plus, there's a chance to win peripherals worth over £300, which sounds like a decent haul. Looks like a packed issue. The next page is the content spread for Volume 1, Issue 4, giving us the full rundown of this month's gaming goodness. It's a lively mix of blues and oranges, featuring some great artwork and screenshots to get you excited. Front and center in the UK showcase is Wave Race 64, which apparently comes with comprehensive tips and a review that was so good it left the team feeling damp. The first look section is jam-packed with previews for upcoming titles. They're checking out Wild Choppers, GoldenEye 007, yes, the one based on the film Shocker, Hexen 64, and NFL Quarterback Club 98 for a bit of gridiron action. There's also Top Gear Rally, Mission Impossible. Good luck with a guide for that one. Dark Rift, where you battle war gods. Blade and Barrel, which is described as a cross between Swiv and Star Fox 64, Uke, Troublemakers, and Castlevania 64 for some 3D vampire hunting. Beyond the previews, there's a dedicated feature on War Gods from GT, and 2 feature articles. One, looking at the evolution of control pads, remember those Lego brick-like things, and another, diving into why N64 games cost an arm and a leg. The page also lists all the regular sections you'd expect, from editorial and news, to reviews, cheats, and the sign-off. Looks like a packed issue. This page kicks off with the rather exciting news that the N64 price has gone down. Apparently since May 1st, the console has been flying off the shelves for £100 less, even outselling the PlayStation in some places. This price drop, happening so soon after launch, is put down to lower production costs. But let's be honest, Everyone suspects it's just a reaction to Sony's earlier price cut. Naturally, this has left early adopters, who paid top whack, feeling a bit miffed, but hey, that's the price you pay for being first, isn't it? Boringto. We also get a look at the European release date's lowdown, giving us a glimpse of what's coming up for the console in 1997. And then there's the intriguing possibility of Tekken landing on the N64. While it's deemed highly unlikely to fit the king of beat-em-ups onto a cartridge, or even the 64DD, there's talk of a version might be in the pipeline. Namco isn't saying much, and the rumor started with a bored fan's website, but the idea is just too exciting not to mention. 6 rare designers have joined Sony, potentially delaying Donkey Kong Country 64. Imagineer's Multi-Racing, a 2-player split-screen racer, is slated for a June Japanese release. Early screens of Mortal Kombat Mythologies. Sub-Zero show a side-scrolling brawler, due out in October. The article concludes with a 1997-1998 N64 release schedule, featuring titles from various developers. The next page jumps straight into the news section. Right then, looks like Virgin have taken over development of Freak Boy. Apparently it's going to be a bit like Mario 64. Intriguing, let's hope they do a good job of it. Big news on the hardware front, Nintendo have finally confirmed the 64DD will pack a modem for online play. Competing globally? Yes please, though it's not yet certain if classics like Mario Kart 64 could be tweaked for it. Then we've got the Art of Fighting Twin, a 3D beat-em-up heading our way, said to have styles ranging from Tekken-like realism to more fantastical Virtua Fighter Kids moves. Finally, the legendary Shigesato Itoi, the brain behind Earthbound, is developing a fishing game called Force Fishing that uses the Rumble Pack to simulate the reel. Honestly, a fishing game from Itoi using the Rumble Pack? Color me surprised, and maybe just a little bit excited. There's also a list of upcoming US release dates, but we'll skip the full rundown for now. This page dives straight into more news, starting with RoboPix. Looks like a peek at Robotech. Crystal Dreams, showing off some giant robot designs and spaceship action. Very little is known about it apparently, other than it's due later this year and they've managed to get hold of a few in-game shots for us to have a gander at. Next up, 64DD Titus. Titus have confirmed that their upcoming games, Lamborghini 64, Superman 64, and Quest for Camelot, will all be 64DD compatible. This means they'll release on cartridge first, but we'll get extra levels and bonuses later, when the 64DD finally arrives. Good to know some developers are planning ahead for the expansion. Then there's Cabbage. Remember Shigesato Itoi from the last page talking about his fishing game? Well, turns out he's also rumored to be working on a virtual pet game for the N64, drawing comparisons to Tamagotchi. Itoi insists the idea isn't ripped off though, claiming he planned it for the Game Boy 5 years ago. Makes you wonder how a virtual pet works on a console you don't exactly carry everywhere. Finally, Japanese Magic shows off Holy Magic Century L-Tale, a Japanese RPG from Imagineer. It certainly looks the part in the screenshots, and the magazine is hoping someone picks it up for a release over here because, let's be honest, we're desperate for some good RPGs on the N64. This page jumps into more N64 news, starting with the big reveal of Acclaim's futuristic racer, now officially titled Extreme G. Forget the earlier Turok rumors, this looks like a proper Wipeout rival on the N64, and the screenshots show some seriously fast bikes tearing up the track. The magazine reckons it could be the first real test of the console's speed, especially in split-screen 4-player mode, and promises loads of bikes and swappable weapons. Sounds promising, doesn't it? Naya. Next up, we get a glimpse of the upcoming Bomberman game for the N64 from Hudson Soft. While the single player might look a bit different from what we're used to, fear not, the multiplayer is apparently where it's at, rumored to support more than 4 players with all new abilities and power-ups. That's the Bomberman we know and love. Meh. Finally, there's a fascinating report on a massive piracy bust in Paraguay, where authorities seized thousands of counterfeit Nintendo cartridges. Nintendo estimates piracy cost them a staggering $810 million annually, so this is a huge win for them in their ongoing battle. Maybe, just maybe, this sort of action will help bring game prices down eventually. We can only hope. Oh, and there are lists of upcoming US and Japanese releases too, if you like dates and things. This page opens with John's column, where our resident expert John Stainsby offers sage advice on getting your imported N64 working without turning it into a smoking mess. Apparently plugging a US or Japanese console straight into a UK power socket is a classic mistake, as young Timmy discovered after frying his dad's shaver adapter. John explains the necessity of a step-down transformer and offers tips on sourcing one, because if you blow up your machine, getting a replacement isn't exactly a walk in the park. Then we dive into 64 Goes Supersonic, focusing on the flight sim Sonic Wings Assault. Developed by Paradigm and Video System, this looks like a proper aerial dogfighting game, offering varied scenarios from the Arctic Sea to getting shot at from skyscrapers in Tokyo City. The images show off the high-speed action, and with multiple planes and hints of multiplayer, it could be a thrilling ride. It's apparently penned in for a release around Christmas. Rounding things off, Nintendo is making amends. At a recent conference, they pledged to give third-party developers more support, even apologizing for past shortcomings. They're dishing out info on developing for the 64DD add-on, using the Jolt Pack, and getting games running smoothly in PAL format. Hopefully this means we'll see a surge in quality third-party titles in the UK. And yes, there's also a list of upcoming Japanese releases if you want to see what you're missing out on. This page kicks off with a bang, featuring a massive piece on the rumor that Konami's fantastic RPG, Suikoden, might be gracing the N64. This PlayStation classic is renowned for its deep plot and huge cast of characters, and the artwork here certainly captures the anime vibe. While Konami apparently wouldn't confirm anything, the mag is keeping a hopeful eye out. Over on the side, we've got the Australian 64 release dates listed out if you're on that side of the world, but let's be honest, the important news is elsewhere. Speaking of Down Under, Nintendo of Australia has dropped the price of the N64, though it's a more modest cut than the hefty one the UK received. Still, every little helps, eh? Then we get into the juicier whispers. There's talk of Silicon Graphics cooking up a virtual reality headset. Sounds a bit far-fetched, even for the N64. More excitingly, there are rumors of a massive new action game from Nintendo potentially called Dream, said to be twice the size of Mario Kart 64, and being worked on by Shigeru Miyamoto himself. That's the stuff dreams are made of, literally. Finally, the excellent news that Factor 5 are developing Turok 64. Responsible for some cracking games back in the day, they're promising to push the N64's effects capabilities. Rumor has it, it'll even launch on cartridge, with extra levels coming later via the 64DD. Now that sounds like a proper action game worth waiting for. This page is a full-page advert showcasing us import N64 consoles and games available now, alongside UK N64 games, accessories, and even some Super NES titles, all offered with fast delivery. This page gives us a first look at some hot N64 titles, featuring a rather familiar face Mario himself alongside a giant N64 controller graphic. The main event here is a preview of Seta's Wild Choppers. Looks like a chaotic 3D shoot-'em-up where you're piloting a chopper and blowing things up. The screenshots give you a taste of the action and some character art. The text details the controls, which is a bit of a twist. You'll be using the trusty D-pad just for the map, while the analog stick handles your altitude, and the trigger is your dedicated boom button. Interesting control scheme, eh? One neat feature mentioned is the war potential system. Apparently, any enemies you don't manage to scrap on a level will gang up and come back even stronger in the next one. Bit harsh that, making you pay for not being utterly ruthless. The goal isn't just the mission objective then, but wiping out as many foes as possible. Sounds like a proper challenge. Look out for a review of this one soon. This page is an absolute cracker, giving us a first look at none other than GoldenEye 007 on the N64. The Master Spy himself is gracing the console, promising girls, guns and gadgets. Developed by Nintendo and Rare, this is shaping up to be a belter of a film tie-in. It follows the movie's plot with first-person shooter levels, and even promises chase scenes. Now while it might look like a Doom clone at first glance, the preview highlights a real focus on realism. Forget carrying an entire armory, you'll only be able to hold a couple of weapons at a time, and healing isn't on tap like it is in some other shooters. The analog stick gets a shout-out for precise aiming, and get this, the speed you walk actually affects how much noise you make, so stealth is a thing. There's also climbing, crouching, and jumping, which is ace. Gadgets are in too, including timer mines and a taser, and you'll keep track of your objectives and ammo via the iconic Bond watch. The screenshots show off various locations, from labs to exteriors, and there's some cracking humor in the captions too, like suggesting enemies will miss you every time, just like in the films. This one sounds well worth keeping an eye on. This page kicks off with a first look at Hexen 64. Now if you know your PC classics, you'll know Hexen is basically Doom but with a fantasy twist, think spells instead of rockets. This N64 version seems to stick to the formula, letting you pick from 3 different character classes, each with their own unique abilities. They reckon the N64's analog stick will handle the movement just like it did in Doom 64, which was pretty decent, but the real draw here, apparently, is the 4-player split-screen mode. Perfect for deathmatch, or getting stuck into the campaign together. Sounds like a right laugh with a few mates. Further down the page we've got a look at NFL Quarterback Club, 98. They haven't nailed down a release date yet, but the screenshots look promising. It's got the official NFL license, naturally, and they're bigging up the play-by-play commentary by Marv Albert. You can apparently create your own team from scratch, pick your colors, and even sign players and sort out wages, which sounds like a decent management mode bolted on. Plus, all the real-world stadiums are meant to be in there. Looks like another solid American football sim is on the horizon, strapping on those ludicrous shoulder pads once again. This page gives us a first look at Top Gear Rally, and blimey does it look promising. After a few outings on the SNES, the series is making the leap to the N64, developed by Boss Game Studios. The pictures plastered across the page are apparently SGI renders, but the developers reckon the final N64 version will look just as good, which is a bold claim given how stunning these shots are. They're promising a solid package with 10 tracks to tear up, 15 different vehicles to choose from, and even variable weather effects. Let's hope the wipers are up to the task. There's also talk of a track designer, which would be a fantastic addition, and importantly, a split-screen 2-player mode for squaring off against a mate. The write-up is genuinely excited, suggesting this could be one of the year's top races, and it's totally exclusive to the N64. You can see various screenshots showcasing different environments, like snowy mountain passes and scorching deserts. Oddly, Mario is also featured prominently, though I think he's just here to wave the flag for the N64, rather than actually appearing in the game itself. Looks like this could be a proper rally contender. This page gives us a first look at Mission Impossible, Ocean's take on the spy genre for the N64. If the idea of swanking around like a certain movie star lookalike, armed with a veritable carrier bag full of gadgets, sounds like your cup of tea, then this could be right up your alley. Ocean is promising a spy simulator, rather than just another Doom clone, which is a relief judging by some of the screenshots. A really intriguing feature is the ability to disguise yourself as any character you've knocked out, which apparently leads to NPCs treating you differently, thanks to a new AI language called Soul developed by Infogrames. They're claiming characters can think and have facial expressions, which is, shall we say, ambitious for the hardware. The storyline follows the film closely, but hopefully not so much that it restricts gameplay. Gadgets from the movie are in, like photographic glasses and exploding chewing gum, classic spy fare. Looking ahead, there's even talk of 64D compatibility for internet deathmatch. Crikey! Online gaming on the N64? Now that's a thought. The page is dotted with various screenshots showing off different environments and character models. This is from Total 64 Volume 1, Issue 4, on page 18. This page gives us a first look at Dark Rift, a 3D beat-em-up slated for a US release soon. The article pitches it as a combo of fighting games that have come before, suggesting it could be a serious contender in the console fighting arena. The game apparently attempts to blend the best elements from various titles. The combo system is described as less mechanical than Killer Instinct, allowing for more player creativity rather than relying on strict predetermined moves. The movement and execution of moves are thought to be similar to the Tekken series. Additionally, characters will pack projectile attacks, sounding a bit like Mortal Kombat, and come armed with their own weapons, which immediately brings Soul Edge to mind. The page features several screenshots showcasing the game's graphics, character designs, and various arenas. One screenshot is specifically highlighted as a design for an arena. Another observation is made about the ability to seemingly throw opponents quite a distance. While the look might not be entirely original, the potential for a solid, varied fighting experience seems to have caught the reviewer's eye. It sounds like Dark Rift aims to cater to fans of different fighting game styles, promising something for everyone. They're hoping for a full review in a couple of issues when it lands over here. This page kicks off with a first look at a couple of intriguing titles. First up is Blade and Barrel, known as Ultra Combat back in Japan. This tank and helicopter simulator sounds a bit like Star Fox, featuring multiplayer modes for both competitive and cooperative aerial and ground combat. The vehicles are apparently modern-day takes on the R-Wing and tank, but the big selling point here is the ability for each player to choose their vehicle per mission. A nice touch Star Fox didn't offer. The possibilities for scenarios sound pretty broad, from industrial settings to desolate deserts. Below that we get a peek at Yuke, Troublemakers from the Legends at Treasure. It's an action-packed platformer where you play as Marina, a maid robot tasked with rescuing her kidnapped boss, Professor Gumball. Now here's the kicker. Marina doesn't have any built-in weapons. Instead, her main ability is grabbing, shaking, and throwing enemies, and get this, she can even grab and repurpose incoming attacks like missiles and laser beams. It's certainly a unique premise for a robot protagonist. Both features look like they're shaping up to be fun and worth keeping an eye on. This page gives us a first look at Castlevania 64, bringing everyone's favorite vampire slayer, Simon Belmont, to the N64. Konami's long-running series is making the leap to 3D, following in the footsteps of other big names like Mario and Zelda. The article mentions that fans of the classic 2D games might be a bit worried about the transition, but points out that folks had similar concerns about Mario 64, and that turned out rather well, didn't it? Hecka. From the early screenshots, the game looks quite different from its predecessors, apparently sharing some similarities with Zelda 64, though Simon will definitely be wielding his trusty whip instead of a sword. The screenshots show off various scenes, including Simon standing outside a castle, a spooky graveyard with glowing crosses, and some action shots of Simon battling a skeletal warrior and another creature. There's even a rather poetic caption about the color blue, which is nice, I suppose. It seems like they're pretty excited about this one, and promise more news as they get it. Looks promising, assuming they nail the whip physics in 3D. Total 64 Volume 1, Issue 4. This page previews War Gods, a fighting game from Midway and Euro.com, hoping to inject some much-needed life into the N64's rather anemic beat-em-up library. After the rather dismal Mortal Kombat trilogy and Killer Instinct Gold, the reviewer is hoping for something decent, bless 'em. War Gods is making the jump to 3D, not unlike the Castlevania preview we just saw, but instead of just moving the camera behind the action, it features large, open arenas where fighters can actually move into the background and foreground. Apparently, a dedicated 3D button is the key to all this spatial awareness. The game features a dynamic camera that promises to follow the action nicely as you beat 7 shades of something out of your opponent. The screenshots show off some fairly chunky-looking combatants and arenas, and there's a render of a rather imposing stone golem sort of chap. Let's hope the N64 players, who haven't had the joy of Tekken or Virtua Fighter, appreciate this foray into the third dimension. It certainly looks different. War Gods, a 3D fighter for the N64, boasts a unique 3D movement system activated by a dedicated button, enabling leaping and sliding. Midway's digital skin technology, using digitized animated images of real actors, promises realistic character detail, as seen in Cruisin' USA. 10 playable characters, each with special moves, fatalities, and backstories revolving around an alien ore, are revealed. Ahokin, Anubis, Pagan, Voodoo, Warhead, Sixi-5, Valla, Kabuki-Jo, Maximus, and Tuck. A helpful tip for arcade players is to watch demo mode for improved gameplay strategies on the N64 release, including 3D walk and jump commands. Yee. The next page continues diving into Midway's War Gods, the 3D fighter we just touched upon. It kicks off with a rather enthusiastic "Oh my gods" and proceeds to spill the beans on more of the 10 characters. We get the lowdown on Warhead, a superhuman fighter transformed by alien ore fragments, the feared samurai Kabuki-Jo, who went a bit mad with power, and the ruthless cyborg Sci-5, built to conquer. We also meet Tak, an ancient idol brought to life, and Anubis, a grave robber cursed to return from the dead. There are a few action-packed screenshots showing characters like Warhead and Swalicey-5 duking it out. Below that, there's a comparison section looking at the arcade version versus the N64. It talks about how the arcades were buzzing with new 3D fighters using tech like digital skin technology and how the N64 version stacks up, promising a smoother, richer look thanks to that 64-bit power. Definitely gives you a feel for who you'll be pummeling faces with. The next page continues diving into the world of War Gods, introducing even more of the quirky combatants vying for power. We meet Maximus, the gladiatorial escapee, Ahaukin, the priest who found power at the bottom of a well, Voodoo, the resurrected witch doctor, and Vala, the princess-turned-Viking goddess. There's a bit of banter about Maximus's fashion choices, but the article quickly moves on to the heavyweight bosses. The sub-boss Grox, described as a large green blob, and the ultimate overlord Exor, the laser-shooting, teleporting villain himself. The page is filled with screenshots showing various characters mid-bout, demonstrating the kind of 3D fighting extravaganza the N64 promises to deliver, suggesting that if you enjoyed other 2D fighters, this step into 3D might just be a real treat. This page kicks off a showcase for the absolute stunner that is Wave Race 64. The large title graphic and dynamic image of jet ski racers leaping and slicing through the water immediately grab your attention. The text wastes no time declaring Wave Race 64 one of the best N64 games yet, and it even touches on the differences UK players might find compared to the US version, helpfully including some special tips. The reviewer confesses to spending frankly ludicrous amounts of time in time trial mode, trying to shave off precious milliseconds, proof positive of the game's utterly addictive nature. They heap praise on the graphics, particularly the water effects, stating water has never looked this good in a game, perhaps even better than in real life. The characters are lauded for their superb animation, especially when you're pulling off tricks and showing off. The page is dotted with vibrant screenshots, showcasing the fast-paced action, the time trial UA, and the various environments, including a cheeky caption suggesting that hitting gates might result in a gammy ear. It's clear the reviewer thinks this game is a proper splash. This page continues the deep dive into Wave Race 64, highlighting the charming little details that make the game special, like the wildlife popping up during races. It praises the championship mode's difficulty curve, which ramps up nicely, forcing you to master the controls and customize your craft for the expert races. Even the time trial and stunt modes get a shout-out, particularly the dynamic waves that ensure no two laps are exactly the same, adding endless replayability. A specific section questions potential differences between the UK and US versions, noting the UK release arrived later and expressing concern that it might be a slightly lesser experience, citing observations of slower lap times and screen borders compared to the NTSC version. Despite this potential drop in the ocean, the game still earns high praise in the final verdict. Graphics score a superb 90, losing a couple of points for the border issue. Sound gets a respectable 87, for its great water effects and catchy tunes. Playability scores 89, still good but marked down slightly because the US version apparently feels faster. Overall, Wave Race 64 lands an impressive 92, proving it's a must-have title despite any regional quirks. This page dives into the sunny beach course in Wave Race 64, offering a handy guide for navigating its watery challenges across the normal, hard, and expert difficulties. The normal setting is a straightforward loop, perfect for practicing lines and knocking seconds off your time. Hard makes the gates tighter and introduces mines, demanding sharper turns, while expert adds even more obstacles and incredibly tight final turns. A key tip suggests hitting up time trial mode to perfect corners, and experiment with craft settings, as customization is key, especially on the trickier levels. The guide points out that the extra mines on hard and expert can catch you out if you're not careful. The page is illustrated with gameplay screenshots showing action from the course at various points, giving you a visual flavor of the sunny racing ahead. This page continues the deep dive into Wave Race 64, presenting a guide to the serene yet challenging Sunset Bay course. It's apparently a favorite among the magazine's staff, offering a good mix of interesting waves and straights ideal for showing off your trick skills. A highlight is the mention of a killer whale appearing on the home straight, and the tantalizing possibility of riding it, although getting it through a stunt ring might be stretching it a bit. The course is broken down by difficulty. Normal is your standard run, perfect for learning wave riding and finding the best lines. Hard ramps up the difficulty with extra gates, frustrating mines, and tighter turns. Expert is where things get really tricky, adding more obstacles, and making the ramp jump particularly demanding, requiring careful angle calculation. As expected, mastering the waves is key, especially on the higher difficulties, to make sure you hit all those crucial gates. This page dives headfirst into the Drake Lake course in Wave Race 64, warning straight away that the mist can make spotting markers a bit of a headache, but the reflections on the water are apparently worth the initial struggle. This course apparently ramps up the difficulty quite significantly as you progress. The main takeaway here is to find a good route and stick to it. And definitely don't bother with that shortcut across the small island, it's slower. The page shows a map of the course, several screenshots detailing different points on the track, and breaks down the challenge across normal, hard, and expert difficulties. Normal mode is your basic introduction, dealing with the mist and learning the layout around the island. Hard throws in extra gates and posts, making navigation trickier, especially those 5 gates in quick succession. You'll need to turn into them early. Expert? Well, that just adds more gates among those pesky posts, cementing the advice to simply learn one safe route and hammer it every single time. Because trying new stuff will apparently lead to nothing but regret. There's also a rather dynamic illustration of a rider on a Kawasaki jet ski. And yes, they mention some rather elusive passing ducks which apparently no one has managed to grab despite hours of trying. Good luck with that then. This page takes us to the Marine Fortress course in Wave Race 64, which apparently throws wild waves and tricky obstacles at you, making it a bit of a nightmare for newcomers. The write-up breaks down the course by difficulty, naturally. On normal, watch out for a wall right after the start that you'll need a wave to clear, and brace yourself for some tight right-hand corners. Hard mode introduces a shortcut that opens on the second lap, requiring a rather optimistic leap of faith to get through, plus a few extra floating boxes to dodge. Expert difficulty piles on even more boxes, especially around that risky shortcut, but otherwise it's much like the hard version. The hardest part, they reckon, is timing that first big wave to leap over a barrier. Get it wrong and you might find yourself needing a parachute. Better safe and take the long way, eh? The page is illustrated with dynamic artwork of jet ski riders, pulling poses, and a dozen screenshots showing various moments on the course, complete with the classic N64 HUD elements, like time, lap, and speed. It seems like another course, where learning the layout and mastering the waves is key, especially if you fancy attempting that shortcut. This page dives into the Port Blue course in Wave Race 64, a track the reviewer reckons is pretty versatile, suitable for both newcomers and seasoned veterans, even if they're not quite sure where the blue bit of the name comes from. Naturally, they break down the course by difficulty. On normal, it's your first introduction to those pesky narrow tunnels, but they're pretty straightforward, so you should be fine. Just keep an eye out for floating debris between the tunnels. Looks harmless but will slow you right down. Hard throws in a neat shortcut to the right of the first tunnel, cutting out that slower section. Expert level makes that shortcut mandatory, because the usual route gets blocked off, forcing you onto the ramps and making sharp turns after landing a real challenge. The best advice here? Play around with your jet ski settings to nail those tight turns, especially on Expert. Don't get carried away with jumps, they say, as losing your line can cost serious time, particularly missing those widely spaced markers. Get caught out, and you'll be clawing your way back to maximum power for ages. The page features bold blue text for the course name, a mini-map of the track, and a bunch of screenshots showing various moments on the course, complete with the in-game HUD displaying time, lap, and speed. Looks like another course where precision and knowing the route are key. This page is all about the Southern Island course in Wave Race 64, and by the looks of it, the reviewer is quite smitten, calling it superb, and highlighting how the changing tide makes each lap a different beast. The real star here is that first lap shortcut. If you're feeling brave, you can nail a submarine stunt off a big ramp to cut under the pier. Pretty nifty, eh? But don't get too attached, as the tide goes out on later laps, taking the ramp with it. The upside? That means the pier is now high and dry, so you can still zip through where the water used to be. Warrington Norse? They break down the difficulties. Normal is just a cracking course with the tide gimmick. Hard dials up the waves to make things trickier. Expert really tests you with gates getting much closer, making it tough to handle those big waves and keep your line. Basically, if you've made it this far, you should know what you're doing. The page is plastered with screenshots showing the action on the water, plus you get a handy minimap of the course layout, and some character artwork to boot. Sounds like a course that keeps you on your toes. This page shifts gears to the rather snazzy-looking Twilight City course in Wave Race 64. Apparently, it's a poser's heaven, packed with chances to show off with tricks and shortcuts, all set in an amazing setting. The big talking point here is the ramp right at the start, offering a large shortcut. The course design is heavy on jumps like this, which is handy for dodging the scattered mines. They admit that missing the ramps isn't a total disaster, but it will slow you down. The reviewer labels it an unlikely but nevertheless superb bonus course, which is high praise indeed. When you crank up the difficulty, things change. In hard mode, it's described as a narrow course unlike others, focusing on the jumps and mines. Expert mode brings bigger waves, making those jumps trickier to line up. The first ramp even gets moved further away. Attempting to clear the wall after that first ramp jump requires serious top speed, and if you don't nail it first time, don't bother trying again. Just take the normal route to avoid a wall-based disaster. You get a decent look at the action with a good selection of screenshots, and some character artwork thrown in for good measure. Looks like a technical challenge. Wave Race 64's Glacier Coast is an expert-level course featuring unique obstacles. The initial straight leads to an icy slope requiring a precise left turn for optimal speed. A narrow section before the ice necessitates a specific turn sequence. Small icebergs shatter on impact, but can still throw you off course at high speeds. The course's layout includes massive ramps and long straights, with a potential triple flip stunt teased for the most daring racers. Visuals show a pink/yellow jet ski racer navigating a frosty environment. This page is all about winning some datal goodies. Following on from that, to buy or not to buy. Feature last issue, they're giving away some top peripherals. We're talking game killers and mega memory cards here, apparently over £300 worth, awarded to 5 lucky punters. To get your hands on these treasures, you just need to answer one simple question. Which of these is not an N64 accessory made by Datal Electronics? The options are A. Memory Card Plus, D. Game Killer, Century Mega Memory Card, and D. Gay. Happy Joy Pack. Clearly, one of those is sticking out like a sore thumb, isn't it? Bengari. Entries need to be on the back of a postcard or sealed envelope, sent to the address provided by July 4, 1997. Good luck. Just remember, employees of Rapide Publishing and participating companies are barred from entering spoilsports. This page dives straight into the heart of the magazine, the review system, known as the Truth. It lays out their percentage scoring, from the absolute cream of the crop, 91,100%, that are essential N64 owner material, right down to the downright dreadful 020% that hopefully you'll never encounter. In between, you've got the great games, 8,190%, that make owning the console worthwhile, the slightly questionable ones, 7,180%, that might split opinion, the probably best avoided, 6,170%, unless you have incredibly niche taste, and the sadly disappointing, 4,160%, that might look good but fizzle out fast. It's their honest take on the games, explaining what each score range means, and how they arrive at the numbers, sometimes with different reviewers having varying opinions. Below that, we get the picks of the bunch, where the staff reveal their current top 5 N64 games. It looks like Star Fox 64 has been keeping everyone busy. We see who fancies what, with lists from Chris Mark, Justin Calvert, Nick Jones, Miles Guttery, and Mark Ashford. They've all got their personal favorites, and even a designated red card or sick joke game they weren't too keen on, giving you a peek into the reviewer's own gaming tastes. This page kicks off the coverage of Star Fox 64, or probably Lilac Wars as we know it here, a game clearly dear to the hearts of the Total 64 crew, if the previous page's staff picks are anything to go by. Front and center we've got the iconic Star Fox team, Fox McCloud, Falco, Peppy and Slippy, looking rather sharp alongside their trusty R-Wing fighter. The large staff title across the top, possibly a stylistic choice or just a bit of magazine layout quirkiness, screams out the game's name amidst a chaotic yet exciting space battle backdrop, complete with laser fire and dazzling explosions. It's a dynamic image, setting the stage for what's bound to be an in-depth look at one of the N64's early flagship titles. This is page 38, so let's see what they make of it. This page continues the Star Fox 64 coverage, picking up right where the previous page left off, with a massive OX64 title following on from the staff. It's hard to miss. Dominating the lower right is a rather sharp-looking polygonal Fox McCloud, giving us a good look at the N64 character models. We've also got a few circular screenshots showcasing the action, from space dogfights to ground missions, and even some juicy explosions. Classic Star Fox fare. The text kicks off the review by reminding us of the SNES original, Starwing, or Star Fox as the Americans called it, and hyping up the N64 version as equally groundbreaking. Seems the Total 64 lot was seriously buzzing about this one, and judging by the screenshots, you can see why. Looks like they're setting the stage for a proper deep dive into Corneria and beyond. This page continues the Star Fox 64 review, kicking off the main chunk of text after the big splash title. We've got a few screenshots showing off the gameplay, from aerial dogfights to what looks like a segment tearing through a tunnel, complete with laser fire and explosions. The review looks back at the original Star Fox on the SNES, or Starwing as it was known here in the UK and Europe, recalling how impressive its polygon graphics were at the time. Even if compared to today's 64-bit standard they might seem a tad simplistic. They mention how Nintendo has been busy giving the 64 treatment to their classic franchises, like Pilot Wings, Mario Kart, Super Mario, Zelda, and Yoshi's Island, and now it's Star Fox's turn. The question is posed. Will it be a beautiful butterfly, or a nasty beetle. Based on the screens and the tone, it sounds like they're leaning towards the former, acknowledging the original's impact, and setting the stage to see how the N64 version measures up. There's also a funny caption next to one screenshot, talking about Fox's nose twitching and eyes winking up close, followed by, "This is not true." Classic British humour, innit? Oh wait, can't say innit. Still, it's clear they're enjoying the return of Fox McCloud and the gang. A review of Star Fox 64 praises its cinematic atmosphere, polished graphics, and addictive gameplay, comparing it to a film. Characters like Fox, Falco, and Slippy are introduced, with Falco portrayed as arrogant and Slippy as trouble-prone. However, the game's linear levels and short playtime are criticized, attributed to hardware limitations. Despite this, the reviewer hails it as one of the most beautiful and addictive games ever. Justin, while acknowledging the lack of co-op, is highly enthusiastic about the 4-player battle mode, deeming it superior to Mario Kart. Overall, the game receives a positive review, despite its brevity. This page gives us another take on Star Fox 64, expanding on the points raised previously. James weighs in, calling the game a graphical powerhouse perfect for showing off the N64, but echoes the sentiment that at its core, it's still just moving and blasting, like the SNES Star Wing. He notes that Nintendo seems to have listened to the linearity complaints by adding branching paths, though he feels the gameplay is largely similar. The main quest involves saving Corneria from a dictator type and his forces, with the help of trusted wingmates like Fox McCloud, Falco, Peppy Hair, and Slippy Toad. We also get introduced to the villains. The bad guys section highlights Starwolf and his crew, Wolf, a pig, a lizard, and the memorably named Butt Monkey. Apparently, these chaps are proper tough nuts and a real challenge. The main antagonist is Anudros, described here as a naughty monkey set on invading Corneria. Screenshots show off the dogfighting action, navigating levels. Watch out for those giant blue chopsticks of doom. And even some playful commentary suggesting the ship's wings were modeled on Fox's ears, classic Nintendo humor. It seems the consensus is that while visually stunning and polished, the gameplay might feel a bit restrictive, but the branching paths add a welcome layer of replayability. The next page delves deeper into the Star Fox 64 experience, confirming those branching paths discussed earlier. It turns out there are loads of routes, 16 levels plus secrets, and how you get through the game depends entirely on your performance. You've got to hit score targets, or complete specific objectives, like protecting some daft outpost, to jump onto the tougher paths. A key change is the inclusion of 3-dimensional battle arenas, offering free movement for absolutely massive dogfights against dozens of enemy ships. Sounds like proper chaos. The graphics get another glowing review, apparently so smooth they look better than real life. Oh, and we get a character profile for Falco. Sounds like a right snob, but apparently he's a lifesaver when you're in a nasty scrape. Remember Wolf and his crew? Beat them, and you unlock a more challenging path. Lose, and you stick to the ordinary route. The screenshots scattered about show off the frantic combat, and some rather mean-looking bad guys with pointy tongues. This page continues the deep dive into Star Fox 64, showcasing the sheer variety on offer. Beyond the trusty R-Wing, you'll be piloting a rather splendid tank, the Landmaster, and a one-man submarine, adding totally different gameplay sections to the mix. The review heaps more praise on the graphics, calling it perhaps the best-looking game ever, pointing out stunning details like sound effects, water ripples, and even track marks left by the tanks. Seriously impressive stuff. Control via the analog stick is lauded as excellent, allowing for precise aiming. New moves have been added too, like the essential roll and the tactical loop-the-loop, and 180-degree turn. The multiplayer mode gets a massive thumbs up, particularly the intense 4-player battles, although splitting the screen 4 ways does make the view a tad small. Miles' comment confirms the game lives up to the hype, praising the added vehicles for variety and calling the graphics absolutely stunning, concluding that despite being a core shoot-'em-up, it's a must-play if you enjoyed the original. There are also descriptions of the R-Wing, Landmaster, and the command ship, the Great Fox. This Star Fox 64 review concludes with high scores and a glowing verdict. The reviewer praises the game's polished visuals, showcasing the N64's capabilities and its innovative jolt pack, though its novelty wears off. Sound design is also highlighted. The review compares the game to a blend of manga, Godzilla, and Independence Day. Scores are exceptional. Graphics, 95, sound, 89, playability, 97, and overall, 96. The reviewer strongly recommends it, calling it a top N64 title, particularly for multiplayer. This page features a review of International Superstar Soccer 64, boldly proclaiming it the greatest football game in the world, ever. The reviewer expresses typical British football fan anguish at the end of the real-life season, especially with certain teams, Manchester United, winning things. But despair turns to delight, as ISS 64 is hailed as the perfect substitute for the summer break, likened enthusiastically to a massive, juicy cheeseburger of football fun. The page is packed with screenshots showcasing the game's on-pitch action from various angles, a tactical minimap, and the vibrant stadium atmosphere, complete with cheering crowds. There's even a photo of a real player, adding to the football flavor. It's clear this game is being pitched as the essential purchase to get your football fix when the real game is on holiday. This page continues the effusive praise for International Superstar Soccer 64, with the review text picking up where it left off, hammering home the point that this game truly sets a new standard. The reviewer dismisses the classic cry of, "It can't get any better than this," which has been heard with games like Matchday, Kickoff, FIFA, and Sensible Soccer over the years, arguing that ISS 64 proves them all wrong. The page is visually dominated by a large action shot of a player alongside multiple screenshots showcasing the gameplay, from tactical overhead views to close-ups of the on-pitch action and stadium atmosphere. A key feature is Justin's comment, where he adds his thoughts, highlighting how playing the English version with commentary, after experiencing the Japanese original, makes the game vastly superior and a definite recommend for anyone, even if they don't typically enjoy football games. The page clearly reinforces the game's status as the new benchmark for football simulations on the N64. This page carries on the International Superstar Soccer 64 loving from the last one, drilling home the point that this isn't just good, it's perhaps the best football game full stop. The review waxes lyrical about the game's mechanics, declaring it the most realistic and playable footy game ever released. You get a bunch of screenshots showing off the action, from close-ups of players looking a bit bewildered, to overhead tactical views, and the stadium atmosphere. The review particularly likes the camera, praising ISS 64's shifting side-in view which actually helps you play, unlike FIFA's obsession with pointless angles just for screenshots. It delves a bit into the controls, explaining how the A, B and C buttons handle everything from passes to shots, with fancy aftertouch for bending the ball or aiming for specific corners. The captions under the pictures are quite amusing too, highlighting little quirks like dodgy goalies, or the opponent apparently fielding too many players. Down the bottom there's a big section showcasing various team formations, with numbered options like 145, 235, 343 etc., letting you choose how to line up your players, which is always a nice touch for the budding tactical genius. This page continues the love affair with International Superstar Soccer 64, showing off some of the locales you can play in with the Around the Grounds feature, showcasing stadiums from Africa, Asia, Euro International, Eurocenter, and South America. The text dives deeper into the gameplay, covering essential moves like sprinting and player selection, then moves on to fancier stuff like holding sprint to get away from defenders, or tapping specific buttons for skill moves like the step over the ball, or a rather nifty trick to flick the ball over your head. Apparently just like Aussie Ardiles back in the day. They also note the cool goal celebrations and replays from various angles. Dolsaya. There's a passionate Nick's comment box declaring ISS 64 the best footy game ever released, praising its superior graphics and extensive moveset, saying it plays a much meaner game than FIFA 64. If you like football, you'll love this game, plain and simple. Superior graphics. Screenshots include a player celebrating a goal, a tactical view of the pitch, and a close-up of players getting stuck in, with a caption cheekily noting the argy-bargy, before realizing they've just scored themselves. Below all that, there's a visual feast of various team formations you can choose from, because tactical flexibility is key, isn't it? Well, it is in this game. This page continues the deep dive into International Superstar Soccer 64, detailing the various ways you can kick a ball about. It lays out the main game modes like the grind of the league, the knockout rush of the cup, a quick blast with penalties, the simple joy of an open game, and the rather clever scenario mode which throws you into tricky match situations with the clock ticking down. There's a large image of a German player, fittingly alongside text, discussing how each player has unique strengths and weaknesses, and how you can get tactical with things like man-marking tricky opponents, or tweaking strategies. Mid-match proper football management, you see. The reviewer is absolutely buzzing about this game, raving that it captures the feel and tension of a real match so well that even onlookers get involved. Apparently, it's the pinnacle of N64 playability right now. They even stick their neck out and say its multiplayer options trump N64 legends like Mario Kart, Wave Race, and Star Fox. Blimey. The screenshots scattered around show various moments of action, from goals flying in to dramatic saves and tactical menu screens. It's clear they really rate this one. This page continues the deep dive into International Superstar Soccer 64, showing off the frankly impressive range of tactics available right at your fingertips during a match, from going all-out attack to setting up a crafty offside trap. The little pitch diagrams make it easy to see how your players will position themselves. The reviewer is still absolutely buzzing about the game, noting that after seeing countless titles, this is one that genuinely keeps them hooked, even when crammed into an office with magazine rivals. They highlight the brilliant multiplayer options, allowing up to 4 human players to get involved, perfect for settling scores. And then comes the big reveal. The verdict is 64 scores a whopping 95 for graphics, 94 for sound, with a nod to the superb commentary, and an almost perfect 96 for playability, being hailed as simply the best footy game ever. All that adds up to a sensational overall score of 97. Screenshots dotted around show various moments, like tactical displays and players looking rather miffed, perhaps after an unfortunate own goal. It's clear this game is a certified banger. This page dives into a reviews roundup, helping newcomers navigate the N64 library by revisiting older titles. First up is Blastcore, with screenshots showing chaotic destruction and vehicles. The reviewer was initially skeptical but got hooked, praising the mix of action, puzzle solving, and explosions. It's compared favorably to Pilot Wings, but apparently, Blastcore has the edge. The overall verdict for this explosive demolition simulator is a respectable 89. Next is Cruisin' USA, which frankly seems to offend the reviewer's sensibilities. They question if they've time-warped back to the late 80s, describing it as a bad version of Outrun. The summary pulls no punches, calling it sluggish with dire graphics and abysmal playability. The verdict is clear. Avoid it. This blast from the arcade past scores a rather dismal 59 overall. Finally, there's Doom 64. As a self-proclaimed Doom fan, the reviewer is absolutely thrilled. They aren't disappointed, noting the fantastic atmosphere, bigger levels packed with monsters, and welcome improvements. This isn't just a quick port, it's a proper N64 entry. The reviewer practically begs you to buy it, stating their Mario 64 cartridge has been gathering dust. The iconic demon slaying gets a fantastic overall score of 92. This review roundup covers 3 more N64 titles. Doraemon, a platformer similar to Mario 64, receives a 69, deemed decent but lacking in comparison. FIFA 64, a disappointing entry, scores a 76, criticized for jerky graphics, sluggish controls, and feeling rushed. Finally, Human Grand Prix, an arcade racer, earns an 80, but is slammed for awful graphics, unrealistic physics, and confusing course design, despite some amusing in-game advertisements. This page continues the review roundup, diving into a trio of titles. First up, we have G-League Perfect Striker, a football sim that apparently features some absolutely cracking player animation, though the actual gameplay is said to be spot on, especially in 2-player. With swift passing and competitive keeping, it gets a massive 93, and is declared a worthy addition to the footy sim ranks, even suggesting it rivals Premier League. Next is Killer Instinct Gold. This beat-em-up is described as loud and furious, all about getting those combos stacking up quickly. While it has more depth than just button mashing, the reviewer notes the animation can be a bit jerky and suffers from slowdown during big combos. It lands a score of 69, the same as that Doraemon chap we saw earlier, and is seen as less refined than something like Tekken. Finally, we get to King of Pro Baseball. Despite the reviewer admitting they know nothing about baseball or Japanese, they had a thoroughly enjoyable session. It's lauded as instantly playable, and far superior to their one previous baseball game experience. The characters are apparently quite amusing too. It bats its way to a score of 91, recommended as the best baseball game on the N64, one no sports fan should miss. This page continues the roundup, with a look at 3 more N64 titles. First up is Mario Kart 64, which the reviewer feels is just more of the same Mario Kart, albeit with shinier graphics and new tracks. While still fun and addictive, especially in multiplayer, they question the point if it's essentially a spruced-up version of an older game, suggesting you might as well stick to the SNES. Despite the reservations, it still pulls in a very respectable 93 overall. Next we have Mortal Kombat Trilogy, And frankly, the reviewer seems utterly baffled why it exists on the N64, claiming it looks identical to every other version. They lament that it doesn't use the console's potential, and advise waiting for a proper 3D fighter. It gets a somewhat lukewarm 78, seen more as something to impress your mates with than a serious contender. Finally, there's Pilot Wings 64. This one is a hit, described as surprisingly relaxing and incredibly enjoyable, with varied missions that keep things interesting. The reviewer loves just floating around and taking in the scenery, and highly recommends it, giving it a fantastic 95 overall. Looks like the N64 is delivering some varied experiences this month. This page brings us 3 more reviews from the roundup. First up is Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire, and oh dear, it seems the hype didn't translate into quality. Despite the promising concept, the reviewer calls it a complete disappointment, describing it as just some second-rate sub-games thrown together on a cart. They even cruelly suggest the graphics look like a SNES game with texture mapping. The overall verdict is a rather disappointing 61, suggesting this one might not stand the test of time. Next, we tee off with St. Andrew's Old Course Golf. This one doesn't fare much better. Described simply as just golf really, the reviewer finds the gameplay boringly the same, regardless of the console. They lament that despite being on the N64, the graphics look nothing like St. Andrew's. The recommendation? Don't buy this poor excuse to cash in, go and play the real thing instead. Ouch. It lands a low overall score of 58. Finally, we arrive at the big one: Super Mario 64. After all the hype, does it deliver? Absolutely. The reviewer gushes that it doesn't fall far short of being the greatest video game ever. They praise the incredibly convincing 3D world and Mario's superb animation, highlighting the addictive gameplay and familiar traits like the throw the controller at the wall and pick it up 5 seconds later syndrome. This is what video games are all about apparently. It scores a staggering 96 overall, clearly the highlight of this roundup. This page continues the roundup with 3 more big N64 titles. First up is Turok: Dinosaur Hunter. The reviewer, normally not a fan of this genre, is pleasantly surprised, highlighting the superb graphics and atmospheric sound as real standouts. They seem particularly amused by the variety of ways in which your enemies can die, which sounds promisingly brutal. Despite the impending arrival of Doom 64, they reckon Turok will keep you hooked. It earns a very respectable 93 overall. Next is Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. This one is praised for being a must-buy for fans, capturing the essence of the sport with excellent design and playability. It gets a solid 90 overall, suggesting it's a cracking sports sim, though maybe not quite reaching the heights of Super Mario 64. Finally, we dive into Wave Race 64. The reviewer's only previous jet ski experience sounds rather humble, but playing Wave Race 64 has clearly inspired them to try the real thing. They gush about it being extremely playable and unusually original, with the only thing missing being a Baywatch-style rescue. Clearly, this is a top-tier racer for the N64. It scores a stunning 96 overall, matching the legendary Mario 64. High praise indeed. Total 64 reviewed the N64 Rumble Pack, Jolt Pack. The review team was impressed by the pack's use in Star Fox 64, particularly the realistic vibrations from train tracks and collapsing buildings. However, they were slightly disappointed with its use in Blast Corps, and felt some underwater effects were muted. The pack's effectiveness hinges on developer use in future games, like 64 Uzumo. UK availability is mentioned, along with the high price of Japanese Star Fox 64 bundles and individual Rumble packs, £12 to £25. This page dives into some accessories from Spook, starting with the Phono Plus SCART cable. Perfect for UK N64 owners who want a crisper picture without splashing out on a super video lead, this £6.99 cable from the games offers SCART or standard of connections and promises to let you play import games in glorious colour. Apparently you won't be disappointed. Next up is the Spook SVHS cable for £8.99, also via the games. It's one of the cheapest super video options available, and while they hint you get what you pay for, they also say it does the job well and helps improve image quality thanks to a little adapter. Need more room to stretch out? The Spook Joypad extension cable gives you an extra 1.5 meters for £8.99. Supplied by the games, manufacturer listed as Nintendo for some reason. It's great if you've got a massive telly and don't fancy sitting on the screen. It's not the longest they've seen, but hey, it's black. Finally, there's the Spook memory cartridge for £19.99, another the game's offering. It boasts 4 times the capacity of the official Nintendo pack, uses a sensible one-button system for page flicking, and thankfully avoids the annoying accidental format feature. Plus it comes with a sticker, which some folks apparently appreciate. Fire International's Firing Line Letters section features reader questions and comments about their Nintendo 64, N64 experiences. Readers discuss topics like screenshot quality, specifically mentioning BlastCore, Wave Race score increases, UK release dates for Mario Kart and Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and in-game challenges like reaching Yoshi in Mario 64. The magazine responds, addressing the Wave Race score issue, screenshot quality concerns, and providing answers to the game-specific queries, including a confirmation of a universal converter for UK games. The section highlights the magazine's engagement with its N64 enthusiast readership. This page showcases more reader opinions in the Firing Line Letters section, including a star letter winner. One reader is quite happy with their UK N64, but seriously concerned about the lack of third-party support and whether the 64DD add-on will suffer the same fate as Sega's ill-fated Mega CD. They're keen for competitions, specifically asking about comparing Wave Race scores and the release date for Mario Kart 64. Another letter bemoans the tiny N64 software library compared to the PlayStation, questioning why developers aren't releasing games when the hardware is ready. The magazine agrees, calling it a vicious circle, and urging developers to get cracking. Finally, one reader is battling a mate who insists the PS1 is still better than the N64, even claiming Nintendo can't make a beat-em-up like Tekken. The magazine wisely advises against violence, and suggests settling it with a side-by-side comparison, perhaps using Doom 64. They also tease upcoming N64 fighters, mentioning news on Tekken 3, but unfortunately, there's no cheat code for getting Yoshi in Mario 64 with 120 stars. Visually we see a N64 console and controller, the star letter highlighted, a dynamic shot of a Wave Race competitor, and a close-up of Mario. This page dives further into the Firing Line letters, starting with Ross Grant, who is thoroughly enjoying Wave Race 64, rating it highly alongside Mario 64 and Turok. He spotted something fishy about the magazine's Mario 64 screenshots, prompting the Truth to confess they cheated using a game killer to get specific shots. Well spotted! Ben Robbins is getting an N64 soon, and asks about potential surfing games, Superscope-like accessories, and keyboard/mouse support. The mag thinks a mouse is a decent idea for adventures, but a keyboard is unlikely. Critically, a newsflash announces the N64 price is dropping substantially to £149 and is already $149 in the US, a relief after the steep initial price. Finally, Sean Murray is frustrated after his friend's US Wave Race copy absolutely demolished his UK time. He suspects the US machine is faster, and the Truth confirms his suspicions are correct. The UK version is indeed noticeably slower. They'll split the high score tables by region next issue, get your mates round, have a few beverages, and set those times. The page features Mario looking pleased in his kart, and a stylized Wave Race rider. This page continues delving into the Firing Line letters section. Young Alex from Shrewsbury is chuffed with his N64, bagging 55 stars in Mario 64, but is completely stumped on the Clockwork World level and wants some help. He also wants to know if the magazine staff liked his drawings. The magazine folks loved his pics so much, they want more, and are launching a competition. The best artist each month wins a free year's subscription. They also throw Alex a bone for the Clockwork level, advising him to wait for the big hand before attempting that tricky jump. Yee. Meanwhile, Leon Kessler in London waxes lyrical about the magazine's quality and layout, giving it top marks. However, he has a major bone to pick with the price of N64 games, finding £60 for a single cartridge utterly outrageous compared to the console's £150 price tag and much cheaper PC games. He reckons cheaper games would tempt more people to buy the console. The magazine sympathizes, acknowledging the UK suffers from higher game prices and later releases than the US or Japan, partly due to cartridge costs, agreeing that a lower game price might indeed boost console sales. The page is adorned with familiar faces like Mario, Fox McCloud, and Falco Lombardi, highlighting the art competition where your drawing skills could bag you a subscription. Get those pencils sharpened! This page keeps the letters rolling in the Firing Line section. First up, Jason in Doncaster is spitting feathers, because the N64 price got slashed just weeks after he forked out for one, feeling properly ripped off. The magazine crew suggest giving Nintendo a shout directly. Then, Rob from Eastbourne is having a pop at CDBA SED consoles, declaring the N64 is the ultimate machine and cartridges are superior due to their speed and quality over quantity approach, citing games like Wave Race, Pilotwings, and Turok as proof, while dismissing PlayStation's Ridge Racer for its small file size. The magazine staff agree that Nintendo prioritizes quality and acknowledge the library is small now, but reckon it'll grow, especially with the promise of the 64DD add-on, agreeing quality is more important than rushed filler. We also see a leaderboard for Wave Race 64, showcasing players' best lap and race times, plus trick scores across various tracks. There's a handy newsflash clarifying that US and UK versions of the game run at different speeds, meaning those with the faster US version will naturally get better times. They're asking players to send in photos to verify their scores, and maybe even feature in the mag themselves. The page is livened up with a shot of the N64 console itself, and a cool in-game screenshot of Wave Race 64. This page is a full-page advert for the pocketbook of Nintendo 64 Hints and Tips Volume 1. Get secrets, strategies and solutions for top games like Mario 64, Turok, and Wave Race. Order now! This page is an absolute scorcher, titled All Fired Up, and it's all about a competition to win a rather nifty piece of kit. It seems Fire International, those chaps behind Blaze Accessories, have been hard at work creating their very own universal converter. Now, this little beauty, pictured prominently alongside the text, apparently lets you play foreign games on your console, regardless of region. Apparently, the only game that might give it a bit of a headache is Wave Race. Blimey, that game is everywhere. The good news is, they're giving 10 of these converters away. To win, you just need to answer a rather unique question. Which of the following should you not use to get a barbecue started? You've got your options. A. Newspaper. B. Firelighters. C. A universal converter. Or D. Kindling. Honestly, who'd try and torch a converter? Mad. You've got until July 4th, 1997, to get your answer in. Send it by postcard or email. Easy peasy, and you could be playing imported games in no time. Wave Race permitting. The next page is a fantastic comic book cover, featuring everyone's favorite N64 dinosaur slayer, Turok. The bold red title Turok dominates the top, with the empty souls underneath, suggesting a rather grim storyline, eh? There's a cool detail in the O of Turok, a green dinosaur head with crosshairs over its eye, showing exactly who he's here to hunt. The main image shows Turok himself, looking intense, aiming a glowing futuristic bow right at you. On the left, the text bellows, "Welcome to the family business," which sounds intriguing. But the real hook is the red box on the right, asking, "Ever wondered where everybody's favorite dinosaur hunter came from?" Total 64 have the answers read on. Looks like the magazine is promising an origin story right here. The Acclaim Comics/Valiant Heroes logo is tucked away at the bottom left, confirming the publisher, and the names Nicieza and Kyanan are credited, presumably the creators behind this particular tale. Ready to learn how the dinosaur hunting business started? This page continues the Turok comic story promised on the cover, diving straight into the protagonist's life before all the dinosaur hunting. We see a rather awkward encounter in a hallway, involving a chap with glasses taking a tumble with a girl. There are internal thoughts from the guy, musing about the girl he's just crashed into, and reflecting on his situation, mentioning his roommate and Joshua Fireseed, who is, of course, the star of the show. The page also features a panel showing a detailed dinosaur head and mentions dreaming, hinting at how his world might be about to change, or is already changing. It seems we're getting a glimpse into the everyday life of the future dinosaur slayer before things get prehistoric. This page continues the Turok comic strip, showing the protagonist, Joshua Fireseed, deep in the throes of college life. We see him chatting with his roommate, Hack, about baseball. Turns out Fireseed's quite the player, knocking in RBIs and apparently attracting attention. However, there are slightly unsettling panels mixed in, including one where he seems tied up or restrained, starkly contrasting with the casual setting. Below, a large illustration depicts a rather muscular Fireseed in his messy room, surrounded by books and belongings, still accompanied by his long-suffering roommate's exasperated dialogue about getting up and generally not being a slob. The page credits The Empty Souls story to Fabian Nicieza and Raphael Kyanan, confirming this is the ongoing narrative thread from the cover. Seems like before the dinosaur slaying, Turok had more immediate problems, like messy rooms, and slightly passive-aggressive roommates. This page continues the Turok comic strip, taking a sharp turn from college dorm life to a full-blown monster brawl. We've got Joshua Fireseed, now looking very much like the Turok we know, locked in combat with a massive shadowy beast in a city street. Seems his problems are a bit bigger than just messy rooms these days. He's joined by what looks like Nemesis and Firespeed, who are also laying into the creature with energy attacks and some snappy banter. Nemesis sarcastically compliments the creature's subtlety, while Firespeed promises they'll keep fighting, even if it kills them. Turok, ever the pragmatic hero, is counting on Firespeed to back that up. Oh, and the creature? Apparently, according to one speech bubble, it's a dinosaur. A bit of a jump from baseball practice, isn't it? Below the main fight we see another scene, possibly a flashback or parallel story. It focuses on a character looking battered and bloody in the rain, contemplating someone named Paris, and his life being set, implying a dramatic shift is coming. Then it cuts back to the college scene from the previous page, with Joshua's roommate Hack still lamenting his friend's academic priorities, which is hilariously juxtaposed with the violent action above. Good to see even a hero like Turok has to worry about grades. Turok, missing since leaving Galena, is the subject of concern from a monstrous council, worried about a disease and whether he's up to the Turok mantle. Meanwhile, a presumably injured character, possibly Firespeed, falls from the sky, engaged in a fight with shadowy figures. The ongoing street battle, involving Turok, Nemesis, and Firespeed against the beast continues, with dialogue questioning the futility of their struggle. Firespeed's defiant response highlights the bleakness of their situation. The falling character, revealed to be Firespeed, is confronted with the truth and urged to stop fighting. The comic's tone has drastically shifted from a seemingly everyday conflict to one involving a potentially fatal struggle for a powerful mantle. This page continues the story, kicking off with a tense phone conversation about the dying Carl, and the possibility of someone named Joshua coming over. There's talk about a mantle-passing version, hinting at the larger, potentially dangerous, stakes established on the previous page. Then, we jump forward a few days, landing in a college dorm. One chap is lifting weights, another is slumped on a bed, both on the phone. They're confirming Uncle Carl is indeed dying, and someone needs to get back home. Names like Vivian and Firespeed pop up in the conversation, adding more characters to the mix. It seems Firespeed is the one being called upon. Apparently someone called Allison, who was met at a party, is only 16, which causes a moment of mild shock. The location is specifically identified as Bosworth Dormitory at Oklahoma College in Oklahoma City. The whole situation feels like the calm before the storm, as the family drama intersects with whatever is happening with Carl and this mantle. A comic page depicts Joshua, a baseball batter, facing intense pressure during a game. Vivian, concerned about Joshua's uncle, confronts him, but Joshua deflects, focusing on the game. The coach offers him a treat, and the scene shifts to a panel reflecting on Joshua's unusual quiet demeanor before the game, contrasted with his usual energy. Vivian's arrival, and her serious concerns, seemingly triggered this change. A teammate/coach regrets not inquiring about Joshua's quietness, emphasizing Vivian's presence provided crucial information, even if unwelcome. The page ends with the game continuing, the pressure mounting on Joshua. This page continues the gripping tale of young Joshua. We see him attend a rather tense family gathering at the Saquin Nation village, where the real reason for his earlier quietness is revealed. It turns out, as the firstborn male in the family, Joshua is expected to inherit some kind of mysterious mantle, something tied to the Saquin ways and apparently vital for the survival of the entire planet. No pressure, eh? Joshua is clearly bewildered, and not exactly thrilled, especially bringing up his late father. This sudden family crisis is serious enough that he and Vivian have to bail on his baseball practice, leaving poor coach at Jukin scratching his head about what just happened. It seems inheriting world-saving responsibilities isn't quite the perk it might sound like. The next page throws young Joshua right into the deep end. Turns out the mysterious family mantle isn't just some dusty old heirloom but the actual bona fide legacy of Turok. The dying relative from the previous page spells it out. Joshua is the next in line to become the legendary protector of Earth. Naturally, Joshua reacts with the appropriate level of disbelief, dismissing the whole thing as a load of manure. As if dealing with dying relatives and family expectations wasn't enough, now he's expected to become a prehistoric superhero? Give the lad a break. Warrington Ewer. Later on the page, looking a bit rough around the edges, as one might after such a revelation, Joshua arrives somewhere that feels like home. He's greeted by a caring figure, who calls him both Carl and Joshua, clearly showing some concern for his state. This person reinforces the message, stressing that what's happening is massive, bigger than you, or him or me, Josh, and concerns the fate of Earth itself. Talk about piling on the pressure. Looks like things are just heating up for our bewildered hero. Continued next month, eh? The suspense is killing us. This page dives into the fascinating, sometimes bewildering, world of Nintendo's control pads, with a feature aptly titled, The Evolution of Control. It kicks off by showcasing the classic NES controller, which, despite its rather plain looks, was revolutionary thanks to that directional pad we all take for granted now. Remember when Mario only needed 2 buttons for his little jumps and spurts of running? Those were simpler times. BDS. Of course, things got a bit more complex by the time Super Mario World rolled around on the SNES, demanding more buttons as abilities expanded. The page shows the SNES pad as the natural progression, adding a few more face buttons and shoulders. But the real star here is the N64 controller. Touted as one of the most hyped aspects of the console's launch, it looked like nothing else on the planet. The article rightly points out that Nintendo are seasoned veterans when it comes to control design, having practically invented the modern D-pad. The N64 pad's unique design is highlighted for being comfortable to hold in 3 different ways, giving game designers plenty of options. Plus, that analog stick? A game changer, offering far more precise control than we'd ever seen before. This page continues the exploration of Nintendo's controller history, following nicely from the previous discussion on the NES. Here we delve into the iconic SNES controller, designated SNSP005, which added a whole new dimension with its extra face buttons and, crucially, introduced the shoulder buttons we now find on practically every controller going. Games like Street Fighter II Turbo truly exploited the full 6 buttons, giving players more intricate control than ever before. But the real jump comes with the N64 controller, the NUS005, which was unlike anything seen before. This beast of a controller, featuring a revolutionary analog stick and a proper trigger button, was instrumental to the console's success. Just try playing Mario 64 without that smooth analog movement and camera control. You simply couldn't get our favorite plumber to navigate those 3D worlds properly. Doom 64 also benefits hugely, allowing for variable speed and precise weapon aiming. Nintendo's innovation here is undeniable, and it seems the competition, particularly Sony, are already scrambling to catch up, adding analog sticks and even trying to replicate the jolt pack effect. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I suppose. This page is all about getting an edge in Cruisin' USA, diving straight into the cheat zone. Our guide here seems to think the game is a bit rather ordinary, suggesting these cheats are more about adding some much-needed fun than becoming a true racing champion. First up, you can unlock some extra courses that are usually only accessible within the full Cruise the USA mode, letting you race them individually to smash those records. Then there's the fun of getting your hands on some hidden vehicles. Yes, you can actually drive a Jeep, a police car, and even a school bus. Apparently, unlocking these might involve a trip to the Hot Times screen, where a rather spooky disembodied head might make an appearance, saying delightfully creepy things like, "I love this job." Delightful. If you've got the police car or school bus and managed a hot time, you can also activate their flashing lights and siren. And for those moments when you need a burst of speed, there's a nitro boost cheat, also tied to the hot times list and that spooky head, requiring a specific button sequence during the race. But be warned, you can only use it once per checkpoint. So if Cruisin' USA felt a bit pedestrian, these little tricks might just liven things up a tad. This page moves from the racetrack to the depths of hell with cheats for Doom 64. If those demonic nasties are giving you grief, fear not, because the Total 64 team is here with the goods, including some rather handy level passwords. The page breaks down passwords by skill level, so whether you fancy a stroll through the demon hordes on Be Gentle, a bit of a challenge with Bring It On, asserting your dominance in I Own Doom, or masochistically attempting Watch Me Die, there's a password here to skip you straight to any level from 2 all the way up to 32. No need to list them all, just know they're here for your skipping pleasure. But the real prize is the super password. Punch this bad boy in, and you're instantly transported to the final level, fully kitted out with 100 health, 200 armor, every weapon imaginable, a backpack full of ammo, and crucially, the 3 pentagram items. These aren't just shiny trinkets. They seriously beef up your laser gun, making it 3 times more potent than the BFG 9000. Apparently, this super laser can dispatch the final boss in a mere 4 seconds. Plus, those pentagrams unlock the switches on the last level that shut down the monster gates and make your laser shoot faster and harder. Seems like the ultimate power trip. Credit for these infernal secrets goes to Justin McWilliams, whose website is listed if you fancy finding out more. This page shifts gears entirely, from demon slaying to sports and fisticuffs, delivering juicy tips and cheats for G-League Perfect Striker and Killer Instinct Gold. First up, G-League Perfect Striker gets a bit daft with ways to unlock 2 new teams, which you could do the hard way by slogging through the league mode, or the easy way with a code. There's also a code for big head players, because apparently making the game silly is a priority, like some kind of football NBA jam. The screenshots show off the standard football action, some of it looking a tad exaggerated with those large craniums. Then, we dive into the brutal world of Killer Instinct Gold. If you're tired of getting your backside handed to you, these cheats let you bypass the grind. You can access all the game's options without having to beat it on tough difficulties, simply by inputting a code on the character select screen. Another code lets you peek at the ending credits without finishing the game, which is handy if you're just curious about who made the thing. More excitingly, you can unleash the beast himself by playing as Gargos with a special code, complete with a smug laugh if you get it right. Finally, you can take the fight to the heavens by unlocking the sky stage with a simple command during character selection. The accompanying screenshots show off Orchid facing Glacius and Spinal battling Orchid in some rather flashy moves. This page is dedicated to Super Mario 64, one of the greatest platformers ever made, jam-packed with bizarre secrets and handy tips. The main image features a rather jolly-looking Mario flying towards the camera, with a giant white hand. There are several cool little tricks detailed here. First up, you can mess about with teleporting to stack hats, which allows Mario to carry around multiple hats, and even use them to defeat enemies. Talk about a fashion statement and a weapon rolled into one. Fancy yourself a director. Apparently you can actually control the camera during the game's ending sequence if you have a second controller plugged in. Who knew? A-day. Then there's a strange one about carrying the rabbit to other areas by exploiting a door glitch. It seems to serve no real purpose, other than being a bit of a laugh. The Hat Trick Guide tells you how to lose your hat in Snowman's Land and get it back via a teleport, leaving your original hat behind. Mario can then retrieve it and, well, stack them up again, just like the first trick. Seems Mario has a hat obsession. Warrington. Finally, a genuinely useful tip. Punch butterflies in certain levels, like Course 2 and 12, and they might turn into 1 UP mushrooms instead of bombs. Free lives? Yes please. This page really shows off some of the quirky little secrets hidden in this classic. This page is dedicated to the legendary Mortal Kombat trilogy, getting straight to the point about what everyone really cares about. The brutal, hilarious, and often bizarre finishing moves. Forget fancy combos, this is where the real fun begins. The page breaks down the fatalities, brutalities, animalities, friendships, babalities, and stage moves for a huge roster of characters. You'll find inputs here for fan favorites like Cyrax, Jax, Kung Lao, Mylena, Nightwolf, and plenty more. Want to turn your opponent into a baby? There's a babality for that. Prefer to rip their head off? Fatality time, mate. Or maybe you just want to make friends and share a marshmallow. Yes, that's an animality option for some. Each character's finishers are listed with the button combinations and the required distance, accompanied by character artwork and some small screenshots showing off the action. It's the essential guide for anyone looking to truly dominate their opponents with flair, or just have a laugh at their expense. This page carries on the essential guide to Mortal Kombat Trilogy's rather creative ways to finish off your opponent. We're diving into the full repertoire of destruction, silliness, and transformations for another hefty chunk of the roster. Featured here are the gruesome details for pulling off fatalities, animalities, friendships, babalities, brutalities, and stage moves for characters like Noob Saibot, Rain, Raiden, Reptile, Scorpion, the shape-shifting Shang Tsung, the mighty Shiva, Cyber Ninja Sector, the ever-ready Sonya, the police officer Striker, both forms of Smoke, Cyber and Human, the Screamer Sindel, and the Iceman himself, Sub-Zero. Want to turn your foe into a cute little penguin or a menacing scorpion? Fancy ripping their head clean off, or perhaps making them cry like a baby? It's all here, laid out with the specific button combinations and the required distance for maximum impact. This is the ultimate cheat sheet for making sure you leave your mark on the arena, whether that's via brutal dismemberment or the heartwarming act of making friends and sharing a good time. Absolutely vital info for any serious MNKT player. This page is packed with essential tips and cheats for Mario Kart 64, promising to spice up your game. Though it cheekily suggests you couldn't possibly improve on Mario himself, which is just daft, everyone needs tips. It details how to unlock those pesky course ghosts by beating specific times on time trial tracks like Luigi Raceway, Mario Raceway, and Royal Raceway. These ghosts apparently represent the development team's best runs, which is rather cool, giving you a proper target to chase down. There's also a handy guide for the classic boost trick, or mini turbo as some call it, explaining how to slide around corners, wriggle the stick, and get that puff of smoke to turn from white to yellow and then red for a nice burst of speed. Absolute game changer for shaving off milliseconds. Furthermore, it tells you how to get your hands on the mirrored tracks by dominating the 150 C-Cups, unlocking a whole new perspective on the courses. And finally, a quick tip on nailing that starting speed burst timing is everything with the lights, naturally. A solid collection of ways to get ahead in this cracking racer. This N64 NBA Hangtime Guide reveals hidden secrets, cheats, and codes. It details secret codes for the tonight's matchup screen, including altering head sizes and shot percentages. Hidden players can be unlocked by entering their names and pins. Player clones are accessible by inputting the player's last name and 0000. Secret play modes, like baby-size players and hyperspeed, are activated via numeric codes and button combinations. Quick tips include random team select and changing Rodman's hair color. This page dives straight into the world of N64 tips and cheats, kicking off with Pilotwings 64. Looks like the magazine rates it as an excellent flying sim with some handy cheats. We get a good look at various modes, with screenshots showing the jetpack, Birdman soaring through rings, Jumble Hopper on the fairground, and a parachute descent. There's a tip on finding Birdman stars in specific locations, like Holiday Island, Crescent Island, and Central Park, suggesting the jetpack is your best friend for exploration. Also, a rather cheeky exploit to get a perfect 100 score every time on Jumble Hopper by using a doorway to teleport near the end. Sounds efficient. The page also features some colorful character artwork from the game. Below that, we get into the gritty details for Shadows of the Empire. It seems collecting those challenge points throughout the game is well worth your time. Depending on the difficulty, easy, medium, Jedi, holding down the camera button can unlock all sorts of goodies. We're talking the Lebo scanner, the ability to fly as an X-Wing or TIE fighter, even controlling the Outrider. On hard, collecting points gives you 30 seconds of invincibility with all weapons, and on Jedi, the Wumpas in the Escape from Echo Base stage will actually help you out. The page includes screenshots showing snowy landscapes, an Atskist, and a rather explosive scene, plus some cool artwork of Boba Fett and his ship. This page dives into the rather thrilling world of Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, a game the magazine clearly holds in high regard, calling it one of the best ever. And seeing that giant Trek staring back at you, you can see why. They've hooked us up with some cracking cheats for the title screen. Hey T, wanna goof around? You can switch to a moody pen and ink look, or throw a rave with disco mode that makes enemies dance. Utterly daft but brilliant. For those less keen on a challenge, there are codes for infinite lives, and even a spirit mode giving you invincibility and slowing down your prehistoric foes. More practically, you can unlock all weapons straight away, or just sort yourself out with unlimited ammo, which is always handy when you're facing off against something with teeth the size of bananas. Once you punch in any code, a handy cheat menu pops up, letting you toggle them on and off. The magazine does lament the lack of a cheat to make the terrifying Trexes less scary, which is a shame. You'd think someone would have sorted that by now. The page is rammed with action shots, the hero legging it, blasting away, and yes, even riding a Triceratops into battle. Superb stuff. This page is all about squeezing every last drop of fun out of Wave Race 64, dishing out a heap of tips, cheats, and stunt guides. It kicks off by teasing the idea of riding a dolphin, which sounds utterly bonkers in the best way, and promises to show you how. The magazine reveals how to unlock the challenging reverse tracks by finishing first overall on expert difficulty. A proper feat that. For stunt enthusiasts, there's a neat trick to racking up massive scores by pausing right after completing a move. They also detail a bunch of new stunts, like the double flip, triple flip, and variations of the helicopter stunt, explaining how to pull off these aerial acrobatics. Want to muck about in two-player? There's a cheat to let both players use the same racer with the same outfit, adding a touch of uniformity to the chaos. For the aquatic mammal lovers, they spill the beans on how to perform dolphin tricks like handstands and spins, and even how to become a dolphin racer by selecting the right mode and holding down the analog stick. Finally, a speed burst tip tells you how to get a perfect start by timing your gas press with the announcer. It's packed with ways to add new challenges and silly fun to the game. This page is flogging off back issues of Total 64, perfect for those who missed out on previous print runs. Each copy will set you back a respectable £4.95, while stocks last, so you'd better get your skates on if you fancy grabbing one. They've got a few crackers on offer. There's the first issue, packed with an as guide to the big games hitting in '97, and reviews for absolute corkers like Super Mario 64, Wave Race 64, and Shadows of the Empire. The second issue gives you a peek at the legend of Zelda, the first look at FIFA 64, a full review of Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, and even a Wave Race guide. Finally, the third issue gets stuck into Doom 64 and Blast Core with full reviews, more FIFA 64 goodness, and a complete Turok solution. If you fancy catching up, there's a handy order form at the bottom, asking for the usual details and your preferred payment method. Simple as that, to fill the gaps in your collection. This page dives headfirst into the slightly murky world of N64 piracy, or more accurately, devices that flirt with the line. It kicks off by asking where you buy your games and hardware, hinting at an invisible undercurrent of black trading. The article introduces us to a couple of pieces of kit. First up is the Dr. V64 from Bung Enterprises in Hong Kong, presented here as a legitimate business making hardware for various uses. And they even have their own website, which is shown off looks like a proper Netscape affair. There's a picture of the Dr. V64 device itself, looking rather sleek. Then there's the Cyclops 64, made by Triad Data Systems in the USA. This one lets you stick a cartridge in, download the data to your PC, and then write it onto special Cyclops cartridges. The magazine muses that Triad seems to be capitalizing on a legal loophole by allowing users to back up games they already own, but sharply adds that copying games you don't own is definitely breaking copyright law. It even touches on the history of copying games back to the ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64 days. We also get a look at the Cyclops 64 device hooked up to a PC cable, and an N64 controller is pictured next to the piracy discussion. A really interesting look at the technology floating around back then. This page continues the deep dive into the Dr. V64, manufactured by Bung Enterprises. It highlights the device's primary function, connecting to the N64 and allowing users to upload game data from cartridges to its internal memory, or a connected PC via parallel cable. The V64 can even expand its memory up to a rather generous 32 megabytes, which is more than enough for pretty much any N64 game you'd care to mention. The article explains the fine line this device walks. Backing up games you already own is presented as legally sound. You've paid for it after all. However, the controversy kicks in when people take this to the next stage. With free drum burners becoming cheaper than chips, users can copy those game files onto SOUDs. Suddenly you've got pirate copies being sold for a fraction of the price of a legitimate cartridge. The page even shows screenshots of the Dr. V64 menu, demonstrating how you can back up a game card, specifically Mario Kart 64, yes, spelled like that, and confirming you can play game now. There's also a nostalgic look back at how other systems like the Sega Mega Drive, Super Famicom, and Japanese PC Engine already had similar backup devices, showing this isn't exactly a new problem for the industry. It notes that companies thought cartridges would solve piracy, but apparently, the clever folks selling these devices found a way around that too. This page introduces the Wildcard 64, another device joining the murky world of N64 backup and, let's be honest, pirate gear. Like the Dr. V64, it lets you pull game data off cartridges into built-in memory and shuffle it off to a PC, but this one steps up the game with built-in SRAM for those precious save files and even a KeyDROM drive. Yes, a KeyDROM drive on your N64, specifically for playing burned discs or even video CDs. Handy, right? If you like free games, that is. Tory. The article explains how these things work their magic, essentially copying the entire game from the cartridge into memory, ready to be dumped elsewhere. It then dives into Nintendo's furious battle against this rampant copyright infringement, highlighting the massive financial hit they're taking, estimated at a staggering $810 million in 1996 alone. They're really putting the boot into countries like China, Taiwan and Hong Kong, where these backup boxes of questionable legality are churned out. The sheer audacity of putting the future of the N64 at risk for a few quid on copied games is frankly rather shocking. While the gear might look a bit homemade, these devices and their creators are surprisingly professional at fleecing the industry. This page dives deeper into the murky world of N64 piracy, giving us the official Nintendo line on the matter. Apparently, they're not best pleased. We hear about the hotspots of bootlegging, like the notorious Ciudad del Este, and even Venezuela, where the government seems to turn a blind eye to copyright theft. Nintendo is fighting tooth and nail, even sending faxes to retailers telling them to stop selling backup devices like the Dr. V64. Hilariously, the makers of the Dr. V64, Bung Enterprises, just updated their software in response. Cheeky. The page also introduces another contender in the legitimate backup tool Honest market, the Supercom Partner 64. This beauty sits on top of your N64, and like others, copies games, but adds a Crodrom drive into the mix, perfect for playing those backups you definitely own legitimate copies of, or maybe a bit of video CD if you're feeling fancy. The magazine rightly points out it's more of a partner in crime. This page is all about getting you hooked on Total 64. They're offering a cracking deal. Subscribe and receive 12 issues for the price of 9. Right, that's the sales pitch out of the way. Down below, they're highlighting some of the magazine's best bits. First up, reviews. Total 64 reckons they provide the most in-depth reviews around, giving games a proper game testing before slapping a score on them. If it gets a high score here, it's earned it. You can see a snapshot of the review section, featuring Star Fox 64, showing off some action shots, and the characters Fox and Falco looking ready for a scrap. Looks like they were pretty impressed with it, judging by the review box snippets. Then there's the tips and solutions section. This is where the magazine's expertise shines, apparently. They promise to give you all the answers for cracking the toughest levels, with their tipsters being experts dishing out the best hints, tips, and cheats. Below that, you've got a taste of their course guides, showing off level maps and details for the N64 Classic Wave Race 64, specifically covering the Sunny Beach and Sunset Bay courses. Looks like they break down the normal, hard, and expert difficulties. All sounds rather helpful for mastering those tricky waters. This page is the payoff. After hyping up all the great content inside Total 64, here's where they hit you with the subscription offer. You can bag yourself 12 issues for a decent price, depending on where you live. The form gives you the options to pay by check, postal order, or credit card. The form covers all the standard stuff like your name, address, and payment details. The background even has a faint N64 console graphic, just to remind you what you're signing up for. They also show off a mock cover highlighting some of the goodies you'll find inside, like features on Star Fox 64, Mario Kart 64, War Gods, ISS Soccer, and Wave Race 64. Definitely looks like a good bang for your buck, if you're into those Nissan 64 classics. This page is where you find out who's behind all this N64 goodness, and how to get hold of them. It's the Rapid Publishing contact page, complete with their website address, http://www.rapid.co.uk, listed prominently at the top as Rapid Online. They've even broken down their online presence into key sections: links, email, game reviews, essential, magazines, company news, and about us. If you need to actually write them a letter or fancy a chat, the full address, phone, fax, and email are all listed at the bottom, right next to their slick R logo. This page is the bright and bold front cover of Total 64 magazine, giving us a sneak peek at what's coming in the next issue, which is set to be issue 5, hitting the streets on June 27th. Leading the charge is the main feature, a full review and guide for Mario Kart 64. With the UK release looming, it sounds like they've had plenty of time to thrash it out and give us the lowdown. Also getting the review treatment are War Gods, the 3D foray into the world of Mortal Kombat, and Wonder Project J2, which looks nice but raises concerns about tackling that pesky Japanese text. The next issue also features a UK showcase on MK Trilogy and previews, or features on Duke Nukem 64, Wild Choppers, and Dark Rift, plus a guide for ISS Soccer. It's shaping up to be a cracking follow-up issue. This page is the magazine's sign-off, complete with the full masthead detailing, who's responsible for bringing you this issue of Total 64. You've got the managing editor, sub-editors, staff writer, designers and contributors listed, along with all the contact details for the magazine, advertising and subscriptions. Right next to all that important stuff, the editor, Justin Calvert, is having a bit of a moan in his editorial piece. He's talking about the frustrating state of the N64 in the UK, namely, the painfully slow release schedule compared to other regions, and the rather hefty price tag for games and imports. He even points out that the Japanese version of ISS Soccer seems to look slightly better, questioning why UK releases aren't always optimized. He's clearly feeling the pinch, like many UK gamers, and wants to know what you think about it all, inviting comments for a future feature. It's all a bit gloomy, but hopefully, that promised price cut will get things moving. There's a picture of Fox McCloud looking rather dashing, seemingly pondering the very same issues plaguing the UK N64 scene. Down at the bottom it's issue 4 of volume 1, page 98, along with the standard copyright blurb. This page is a full-page advert for PlayStation Solutions magazine, shouting that it's on sale now. The ad features a rather blocky-looking footballer, a shiny ball, and a glimpse of the magazine cover itself, boasting cheats, tips and guides for games like Micro Machines and Platinum classics such as Tekken and Wipeout, all for £3.95 or $6.95 US. This page features everyone's favourite Vulpine pilot, standing rather heroically on the magazine's title, Total 64. Below him you'll find the unmistakable logo of Rapide Publishing, along with their contact details. It seems this page is a nod to one of the N64's big hitters, reminding you who's bringing you this fine publication.